I've always been fascinated and stared at maps for hours as a kid. I've especially been most intrigued by the uninhabited or lonelier places on the planet, like Greenland, for instance, or just recently flying over Alaska and an icy chain of mountains and islands uninhabited. Andrew Bird. Nice. I like those choices.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where everybody knows the quickest way to a man's heart is through a nice big platter of seal meat and whale blubber. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radio. So good of you to join us tonight. And as you may already be aware, the matter of Greenland, specifically the territorial sovereignty of Greenland, more specifically the question of who shall be Greenland's colonial master, has been a topic of much discussion and controversy in recent weeks, and much of that discussion and controversy, not surprisingly, has been overheated and hysterical to the point of being really quite funny. In fact, some hyperventilating Europeans and many hyperventilating Democrats have even taken to calling it the Greenland crisis. Is it actually a crisis? Not really. How do we know it's not a crisis? Because we're literate enough to understand history didn't begin 5 minutes ago. And we are circumspect enough to recognize that all events in the present day are a culmination of a long series of previous events that transpired in years and decades and centuries past. And so, in order to underscore and reinforce these concepts that we endeavor so often on this program to underscore and reinforce, and in service to the cause of public mental hygiene, tonight we present for your kind consideration Curmudgeon's Field Guide to the Barren Arctic Desert that those cheeky Vikings ironically named Greenland, including an appearance by our special guest star, the Monroe Doctrine. And without further ado, let's strap on our sealskin boots and saddle up our trusty polar bear and begin the expedition, shall we? Episode 1, 986 AD, the first Norse settlement. Greenland enters recorded history the way many places do, by accident, by exile, and with an aggressively dishonest marketing campaign. Eric the Red, banished from Iceland for killing people who were apparently insufficiently understanding about being killed, sailed west and found a vast frozen landmass that he promptly named Greenland. This was not irony, it was branding. Medieval branding, to be sure, but branding nonetheless. The Norse settlement of Greenland was not a colony in the modern sense, it was more of a gamble. A thin string of farmsteads clung to the southwestern coast, surviving on seal meat, walrus ivory, and an almost heroic, some might say irrational, level of stubbornness. There was no state apparatus, no standing army, certainly no imperial bureaucracy. Governance, such as it was, consisted of assemblies, kinship ties, and the shared understanding that wind and snow and ice are the real sovereigns. And this is worth lingering on for just a moment because it reminds us that for most of human history, sovereignty was not about flags or treaties. It was more about presence. If you could live in a place, farm a few meager crops there, and manage not to die immediately, you could plausibly claim ownership of it. As such, Greenland was not owned so much as it was endured. The Norse didn't conquer Greenland, they survived it, at least until they didn't. Episode 2, 1262 AD. Greenland enters union with Norway. By the mid-13th century, the Greenland Norse did what frontier communities often do. They desperately appealed for help. Or, more precisely, they acknowledged the sovereignty of some distant king in some faraway land in exchange for the vague promise of protection, legitimacy, and trade. In 1262, Greenland formally entered into a union with the Kingdom of Norway, becoming, on paper at least, a constituent part of a medieval Scandinavian realm. This was less an act of imperial expansion than one of administrative housekeeping. Norway didn't suddenly garrison Greenland or make any meaningful investment in its development. The crown asserted sovereignty in the way that medieval states preferred, by writing it down and trusting that geography would take care of the rest. And geography in this case was a very persuasive mistress. The Norse settlements declined over the following centuries, battered by shifting climates, economic irrelevance, and competition from the Inuit, who were far better adapted to the environment, having lived in it since time immemorial. By the 15th century, the Norse were gone, not conquered, not overthrown, simply erased by entropy. What's remarkable is that Norway and later Denmark never relinquished their respective territorial claims. Greenland became a sovereign possession without subjects, a legal fiction floating over an empty ice sheet. It was conquest by paperwork, and it worked rather astoundingly well. Episode 3, 1721, Danish-Norwegian resettlement and colonization. Greenland re-enters the European consciousness in the 18th century, not because it suddenly mattered strategically, it very much didn't, but because Europe never entirely forgot how much it dislikes unfinished business. In 1721, the Danish-Norwegian crown sponsored a renewed settlement effort led by missionaries who believed, incorrectly but quite fervently, that the Norse colonists might just still be out there waiting to be Lutheranized. They weren't, as it turns out. What Denmark found instead were Inuit communities who had lived in Greenland continuously and successfully, while Europe misplaced the world's largest island for several centuries. This posed a bit of a mild philosophical inconvenience, which colonial powers traditionally resolve by simply ignoring it. The new Danish presence was an explicitly colonial one this time, trading monopolies, missionary oversight, and very tight administrative control. Greenland was no longer a lost medieval outpost. It was a managed possession, still marginal, still remote, but now firmly slotted into the European system of empires that assumed land could be owned even when it steadfastly resisted habitation. From this point forward, Greenland's status would be defined less by who lived there and more by who claimed it. The ice stayed the same. The paperwork improved quite a bit. And that distinction between presence and possession is going to matter a great deal once the United States of America enter our story. Episode 4, 1814, the Treaty of Kiel and the Accidental Permanence of Denmark. Greenland's modern political status begins, as so many enduring arrangements do, as a clerical afterthought following decades of armed conflict. In 1814, Denmark found itself on the losing side of the Napoleonic Wars and was forced under the Treaty of Kiel to surrender Norway to the King of Sweden. This was supposed to be a clean divorce. In the actual event, it was not. Denmark, in a moment of legalistic nimbleness that would make future international lawyers politely golf clap in appreciation, managed to retain Norway's former overseas possessions, Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands. The rationale was thin, but the ink on the signatures dried anyway, and all of the wax seals were properly affixed, which in international law is what actually matters. Thus, Greenland became Danish not because Denmark had conquered it or settled it anew or even particularly wanted it, but because nobody else objected strongly enough at the negotiating table. Sovereignty here was not asserted with cannons or with colonists, but with a carefully worded footnote. When Edward Bulwer Lytton famously posited that the pen is mightier than the sword, this is just the sort of thing he was talking about. And this moment is a crucial one because it fixes Greenland's status in the European order just 9 years before the United States would announce loudly and with great self-confidence that Europe was no longer welcome to rearrange the Western Hemisphere at its will. Timing, as it turns out, is everything. Episode 5, 1823, the Monroe Doctrine and America's Grand Declaration. In 1823, President James Monroe informed Europe politely, firmly, and with a confidence that was not entirely justified by the current state of American military power, that the Western Hemisphere was no longer open for colonial business. The Monroe Doctrine was not a treaty. It was not even enforceable. It was, at the time, more of an aspiration than a policy, but it was also a warning shot. The doctrine rested on a simple premise. European political control in the Americas is inherently destabilizing and is therefore unacceptable. New colonies were out. Old ones were more complicated. The United States, still young and rather deeply insecure, was nonetheless staking a moral and strategic claim to hemispheric guardianship. Notably, Greenland was not mentioned. This was not an oversight, rather, it was a feature. Greenland sat awkwardly at the edge of geography and definition. North American in location, European in administration, and Arctic enough that nobody wanted to think very deeply about it. Thus, Denmark's claim slipped through the doctrinal net, grandfathered in only by inertia. The Monroe Doctrine, like all great declarations, drew bold lines and left the margins as fuzzy as possible. Greenland lived inside those margins, quietly Danish, while America directed its gaze instead to the south and the west, at least for now. Episode 6, 1867, Alaska and the Limits of American Patience. If Greenland represents the European talent for hanging on to territory by paperwork alone, Alaska represents the American allergy to leaving European powers anywhere nearby. In 1867, the United States purchased Alaska from the Russian Empire for $7.2 million, an act that was widely mocked at the time and almost universally praised in hindsight. This was not about whaling rights or seal pelts or even gold, really. It was about proximity. The idea of a European imperial power squatting indefinitely on the North American continent offended American strategic sensibilities in a way that could not be tolerated, even if the offender was broke, distant, and slowly collapsing. Had certain voices prevailed, voices counseling restraint, thrift, and minding our own business, Russia might well have retained a colonial foothold in North America well into the modern era. The Monroe Doctrine, in that case, would have remained a polite suggestion rather than a lived reality. Alaska established a precedent. European possessions in the New World were acceptable only so long as they were temporary. The United States might tolerate them, but it would not forget them. And somewhere across the Arctic waters, Greenland quietly took note. Episode 7, 1898, the Spanish-American War, or When America Learned It Had Muscles. By the end of the 19th century, the Monroe Doctrine had evolved from a diplomatic posture into something closer to a personality trait. The Spanish-American War in 1898 marks the moment when the United States stopped merely objecting to European imperialism in the Western Hemisphere and began physically dismantling it at gunpoint. Spain lost Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines in one efficient imperial liquidation sale. The message to Europe was unmistakable. Old empires were no longer protected by tradition or by age or by paperwork. If you had colonies in the American sphere, you had them on borrowed time. This mattered for Greenland not because Greenland was threatened, but because the rules of the game were changing. The United States was no longer a continental republic with regional interests. It was becoming a hemispheric superpower with strategic horizons. The doctrine was no longer about non-interference alone. It was about control of outcomes. And in that worldview, geography becomes destiny. The Arctic stops being a frozen wasteland and starts being a map of future transit routes, military positioning, and access corridors. Greenland's value begins to shift, not as land, not as a colony, but as a platform. Denmark still owned it, but like a buxom blonde in a bar on a Saturday night, America had started noticing it. Episode 8, 1914 to 18, World War I and the Strategic Awakening of the North. The First World War reconfigured strategic thinking everywhere, but it had a particular effect on how powers viewed geography. Oceans stopped being moats and started being highways. Distance stopped being protection and started being vulnerability. The Arctic world entered military consciousness not as a battlefield, but rather as infrastructure. Shipping lanes, communication routes, refueling points, and future air transit corridors became planning considerations. Greenland's location, once a liability, became its defining feature, a massive immobile aircraft carrier between North America and Europe, whether anyone admitted it yet or not. The United States emerges from World War I with industrial power, financial leverage, and global reach, but also with a new obsession: strategic depth. Security was no longer about borders, it was about buffer zones, access control, and forward positioning. Greenland, again, remained Danish on paper, but it had entered the American strategic imagination in a way that it never had before, not as a territory to govern, but as a terrain to control indirectly. The old European model of sovereignty, of flags, monarchs, charters, and so forth, was colliding with the new American model of logistics, access, and influence. Episode 9, 1941, World War II and the end of Greenland's innocence. World War II is the moment when Greenland stops being abstract and becomes operational. When the Germans occupied Denmark in 1940, Greenland's legal status became suddenly profoundly weird. It was Danish territory governed by a government that no longer meaningfully governed itself. And let's face it, if the mother country can be conquered in under 48 hours by a couple of thousand men with parachutes, then its viability as a colonial administrator of huge faraway possessions has come very much into doubt. The United States responded pragmatically, but not necessarily legally. In 1941, America moved to protect Greenland on Denmark's behalf, establishing military bases and asserting de facto control over the island's defense. No conquest, no annexation, no declaration, just strategic necessity wrapped in legal fiction. This is the Monroe Doctrine in its mature form, not slogans, not speeches, not proclamations, but quiet occupation without formal ownership. From this point forward, Greenland becomes a functional part of American hemispheric security architecture. It is no longer European in any meaningful strategic sense, irrespective of whose flag flies over its capital. Denmark retains sovereignty, America retains control of outcomes, and the Arctic becomes part of the American defensive perimeter, not by law, but by logistics. Episode 10, 1947 to 1960, the Cold War and the Arctic as a tripwire. The end of the Second World War didn't bring peace so much as it brought planning. Specifically, planning for a war that everyone hoped would never happen, but which everyone assumed eventually would. Enter the Cold War, and with it, a grim new strategic logic. If nuclear annihilation was coming, it would come like a much angrier version of Santa Claus, namely, from the direction of the North Pole. Intercontinental bombers and later ICBMs didn't travel east to west along familiar maps. They went north. The shortest path between the Soviet Union and the United States ran straight across the Arctic, and Greenland sat squarely in the middle like a very cold doormat. In this era, Greenland ceased to be merely useful, it became essential. Early warning radar systems, weather stations, and listening posts proliferated. The island became part of a continental nervous system designed to detect the first hint of Soviet aggression, not to stop it necessarily, but to give leaders a few extra minutes to decide how the world should end. The Monroe Doctrine was now fully militarized. No European power could meaningfully operate in the Arctic without American consent, and no adversary could pass through it unnoticed, at least not in theory. Greenland wasn't American territory, but it was unmistakably American space. Episode 11, 1951 to 68, Thule Air Base and the nuclear age gets real. If Greenland was the tripwire, Thule Air Base was the pressure plate. Established under a 1951 defense agreement with Denmark, Thule became one of the most important military installations on Earth, a hub for radar, air defense, and nuclear deterrence at the very edge of human habitability. This was not subtle imperialism. This was the enormous runways, nuclear-capable bombers, and a permanent American presence 750 miles north of the Arctic Circle. The local Inuit population was relocated to make way for it because strategic necessity has never enjoyed the luxury of sentiment. Then came 1968 when a US B-52 bomber carrying nuclear weapons crashed near Thule, scattering radioactive debris across the ice. Denmark, which officially prohibited nuclear weapons on its territory, learned the hard way what shared defense actually means. Greenland's role was no longer theoretical, it was baked into nuclear reality. The island existed functionally to absorb risk on America's behalf, geographic insurance against catastrophe. Sovereignty remained Danish, control remained American. Consequences were shared unevenly. Episode 12, 1991. The Cold War ends and everybody forgets why Greenland matters. And then, miraculously, the Soviet Union collapses. The existential threat evaporates. Nuclear Armageddon is postponed indefinitely, and with it, strategic memory begins to fade. Bases are downsized, budgets are cut, Arctic infrastructure is maintained more out of habit than out of urgency. Greenland slips back into the background, filed away in a folder labeled Cold War Leftovers. This was not because Greenland became less important, but because America had briefly convinced itself that history was over. The Monroe Doctrine entered a kind of bureaucratic hibernation, if you will, not repealed, not rejected, just assumed to be unnecessary and surplus to requirements. Europe was friendly. Russia was reforming. China was opening up. Greenland became a place for climate studies, indigenous politics, and polite international cooperation. Strategy gave way to symposiums. Deterrence yielded to PowerPoint slides. And as always, the moment a power stops thinking strategically is the moment it starts being surprised, which brings us inevitably to the present. Episode 13, 2007 to 14, Russia returns, China arrives, and the Arctic reopens. History, as it turns out, like the man in the Monty Python picture, wasn't quite dead yet. In 2007, the Russian Federation staged one of the most on-the-nose geopolitical stunts of the modern era by planting a titanium Russian flag on the seabed beneath the North Pole. This was not legally binding, of course, but it was very much on brand. The message was clear. The Arctic was back, and Russia intended to treat it the way Russia has always treated frontiers, as places to be claimed, fortified, and argued over loudly. About the same time, China began referring to itself with a straight face as a near-Arctic power. This is an interesting phrase, in the same way that calling oneself nearly pregnant is also interesting. China's interest was not subtle. Shipping lanes, undersea cables, rare earth minerals, and the long-term leverage that comes from being present before anybody thinks to stop you. Greenland once again found itself at the center of a map that people had stopped pretending didn't exist. The Monroe Doctrine, long thought to be dormant, began twitching in its sleep. Episode 14, 2015 to 2020. Changing climates, new shipping lanes, and the return of geographic reality. Ice melts, geography reasserts itself. As Arctic ice receded, new shipping routes emerged. Routes that could cut weeks off of transit times between Asia, Europe, and North America. What had once been an impassable wasteland became an economic accelerant. At the same time, Greenland's mineral wealth, long thought to be inaccessible, suddenly mattered. Rare earth elements, uranium, oil, gas, and strategic metals turned theoretical interest into practical concern. Denmark, a country whose entire population could fit into a mid-sized American metro area, found itself nominally responsible for a landmass of enormous strategic value at the exact moment that great power competition returned. Greenland's own autonomy movement gained momentum, but autonomy cuts both ways. Independence requires protection, investment, and allies. And once again, the same unspoken assumption resurfaced that whatever Greenland technically was, it could not be allowed to fall under hostile influence. Climatic changes didn't create this problem. It merely removed the ice from the cover page. Episode 15, 2021 to the present day, the Greenland crisis and why it isn't one. Which brings us to the so-called Greenland crisis. Pearl-clutching Europeans recoil at the suggestion that the United States might seek sovereignty, control, or exclusive strategic dominance over Greenland. In London and Paris and Brussels and elsewhere, this is framed as shocking, aggressive, even unprecedented behavior. In point of fact, it is none of those things. From the Monroe Doctrine forward, the American position has been simple. European powers do not get to project strategic power in the Western Hemisphere in ways that threaten U.S. security. Greenland is not an exception to this rule. It is merely a test case. The fact that Denmark's claim predates the Monroe Doctrine by 9 years does not negate it. It merely explains why the issue was deferred until conditions changed. And conditions have most assuredly changed. If Greenland matters, and it very much does, and someone will control it. The only real question is whether that someone is a distant European monarchy, a rising Eurasian bloc, or the continental power that already defends it in every practical and meaningful sense. This is not imperialism, it is geopolitics doing what it has always done. Greenland has never been isolated, it has only been quiet. From Norse settlers to Cold War bombers, from Danish colonial administrators to Arctic shipping consortiums, the island has always existed at the intersection of ambition and necessity. The Monroe Doctrine did not create this reality, it merely gave it a name. And now, as ice melts and history resumes, Greenland returns to its accustomed role, not as a peaceful periphery, but as a strategic fulcrum. Anyone who is shocked by this hasn't been paying attention. Anyone surprised by America's interest has forgotten its own history. And anyone calling this a crisis is mistaking inevitability for controversy. And with that, we put the bear in the barn, retire to our cozy igloo, stick our boots by the fire, and I convey you into the custody of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Tonight, we are going to go over a few different movies. We both watched them. We both have opinions on them, and we have made a point of not discussing it until tonight because I think it's going to get sparkly. I also have brought a movie that's worth watching, by the way, but we'll save that for the end of all this. What's up, brother? What you had going on this week?
Oh, nothing particularly interesting, just, helping the robots take over the world, as you do.
Right. Well, I mean, you got to have a hobby, right?
Yes. And I did have a chance to watch a couple of movies that you made me watch, one of which I enjoyed more than the other. But that's why we watch movies, so we can give each other psychotherapy on Sunday night here on the Blast Radio,
right?
Well, for everyone else's amusement, right?
Exactly. I mean, if I had to have somebody to discuss this with, I'd need a therapist.
Yeah, I think I might need a therapist anyway, for God's sake.
Need a therapist anyway. But okay, which one do you want to start with? I think the shortest one to go over would probably be The Rip.
Yeah, like I texted you earlier, I think it was worthwhile to have watched, and I thought it was when we were actually, this is kind of funny, when there was about a third of the movie remaining, and I was really enjoying it very much. I was actually almost picking up my phone to text you and say, I am really enjoying this movie, but I stopped myself because I thought, no, I shouldn't, because this picture still has time to ruin itself in the third act. And sadly, it ruined itself in the third act. And what did you think of it?
All right. So like you said, at first, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, great. It's Matt Damon and freaking Ben Affleck. I mean, can you ask for a better combo? The ancillary actors are all decent. The plot, I'm gonna hold off on plot for a minute. But it does a thing kind of like The Sixth Sense did, where it does some layered filming in a way that is really difficult to describe without blowing every single spoiler point in the movie. And so this is your spoiler warning. I'm gonna fuck this bitch up.
Yeah, it's one of those pictures that's nigh on impossible to even discuss without giving spoilers. So we just have to give the warning and proceed.
So much like you, I made it through the first 2/3 uninterrupted, and then had to do some shit, came back and finished watching it. And I think that made a huge difference in how I perceived the film, because it gave me a little bit of time to sort of digest what I had seen and to realize that you're not seeing what you think you are seeing. You are seeing what you are being shown. And as such, it falls under the concept of an unreliable narrator, in that you cannot trust your lying eyes. Now, part of what blew this out for me is the overwhelming implication that Matt Damon's character is an infallible, untouchable, noble, got into the job for all the right reasons. He and the younger brother? It's his younger brother, right? Ben Affleck, or is it older brother?
No,
Anyway.
Affleck is the older brother of the FBI guy.
Right. But the FBI guy is Matt Damon, right?
No, Affleck and Damon are both Miami PD.
Oh, okay. All right. It's a bunch of different badges. It doesn't really matter when it comes down to it. The FBI, right? That was the FBI. Yeah, this is all Miami PD. Right. Gotcha. But Matt Damon was the golden boy, the untouchable, like would never go dirty on a job. And yet at the same time, every single one of these dirty cops just nods right the fuck along into the dirty job that this super clean golden boy cop is putting in front of him. And from the very outset, with the initial tip off, the methodology is completely against protocol. And so the implication is they're going along with it because he's the good guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't lie because he's that golden boy, even though every single process, protocol, paperwork, reporting, everything fails because they simply don't do it. There's not a conversation about, hey, we probably shouldn't send this upstairs. That conversation takes place, but it takes place between two characters in a room unassociated with the rest of the group. And then no one ever questions it again. The concept that this might be a black bag, dirty job never comes up again until they're literally counting money in a room that's not supposed to have money in it.
Yeah. Or we think they're counting money.
Or yeah, no, see, that's the thing. You can't believe your lying eyes. And it kind of pulls a few dirty tricks in there because they depict ignorance as nefariousness in a couple of cases where someone doesn't know stuff, which that you don't know either, by the way, as the viewer at the time.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention also, go ahead.
It uses that ignorance against you like a dull bludgeon to beat you over the head with how dumb you are. But at the same time, you never had a chance to know what was going on.
After we had texted last, however many hours ago that was, and I did a bit of reading after I was, as you do after you've watched a picture, and I actually came across an article that did much to help me understand why the movie did the thing in the third act that disappointed me so much, where it basically turns into The Usual Suspects and holds your hand like you're a 5-year-old and walks you back through everything previously in the movie and ties it up in a pretty bow. And I thought that was insulting to the audience's intelligence, and sometimes the audience is intelligent enough to figure out things on their own, and that's why I didn't like that approach that they took. But I came across this article in which Matt Damon says, and I found this really fascinating. He says, when you're making movies for Netflix nowadays, they insist that you explicitly explain the plot of the movie in the dialogue at least 4 times from start to finish. And because it is assumed that the average audience member is going to be sitting there doom scrolling on their phone the whole time, half-heartedly paying attention to the movie. So you need to explain things to them over and over and over and over and over again, because and Netflix thinks that is just the way that movies have to be made now. And obviously Damon finds this pretty upsetting, as I obviously do too. And you understand sort of the conundrum that it places him in as a whatever he is on this picture, screenwriter / producer, which I think Affleck is also. But Netflix, they're the ones signing the checks, so obviously they're going to exercise some type of editorial studio control. But how incredibly regrettable that major studios now, and Netflix I think has to be considered a major studio, that they approach filmmaking with that set of presumptions, that the audience is like a kitten chasing a laser pointer and has no attention span of which to speak. And you have to, at some point in the third act, you have to grab them by the hand and treat them like a 5-year-old and walk them back through the entire picture to beat them over the head with all of the plot exposition that they should have been able to gather for themselves if they were watching the movie attentively and they don't have a broken brain.
Right. And I got to throw this out there. I saw the same interview and I owe deep tears for American filmmaking at this point. But I do kind of like the way they handled it, and I think they handled it as well as the only way you could handle it in this case. They utilized someone trying to explain what's going on who doesn't have all the information and stumbling across the right answer. And I thought that was really weird when home chick, I think it was the two chicks that were talking in the
character who basically functions as the surrogate for the audience.
Yeah. She's just been sitting there watching the whole time. She hasn't really had any direct involvement in anything short of clearing the house, and then a little bit of a discussion with the lady that was in the house when they got there. And after that, all she does is see things go on in that room, and that's where they go to have their like private conversations or whatever. Like they forget she fucking exists, and she is basically, like you said, a proxy for the audience. And so at one point she kind of breaks it down. She's like, all right, so we have no paperwork for the tip. We don't have any orders to do what we're doing. We're currently locked in a room with,
you haven't called it into
how
HQ.
much money, right? Nobody's got backup. He's taken everyone's cell phone, and I am afraid that we are so deep into this shit right now that we can't even see the edges of it. And I'm just here to count this money. And she goes on with what she ends up getting shot later in the picture.
Yep.
For like the fire, dude, the fucking fire, man. Oh my God, that was the most tardated. Oh God, they're in a house that the power's been turned off in. They have candles lit everywhere, like it's a freaking French boutique, a Turkish bathhouse or something.
Medieval cathedral.
Medieval cathedral, right? And they're standing around talking yet again, expositing the step by step what has just taken place in the movie for the past half hour. And I think they did this so many times in the movie because Netflix was like at least 4 times. They're like, we'll give you 50, and none of them would be right.
Yeah, exactly. It had to be something like that because there is such a dramatic shift. The shift really happens, I think, once the bullets start flying. Before you had any bullets flying, I thought it was a really outstanding picture, and I was enjoying it a lot. There was no really violence or action in it of which to speak. It was just good tension-filled sort of psychological drama filmmaking, and it was fantastic. But once the bullets start flying, I mean, not only the aspect of it that bothered me with taking the audience by the hand and leading them back through the whole plot like they're a 5-year-old, but also I felt like it just devolved way too much into standard action cop movie tropes. Yeah, I mean, Affleck is in a car chase, and he's got one hand on the wheel, and the other hand he's shooting an M4 with one hand across his body, because you can do that. Like, come on, you guys did so well keeping this movie grounded in the real world for the first 2 acts, and don't do this shit at the end. That's not cool. You had such a good thing going. Why did you have to do that to it? And maybe it was just me that was bothered by that.
They do that shit at the end, bro. I kind of feel like maybe they were given their marching orders as to how many fight scenes, how many explosions, how many of this, that, and the other thing they got to have. And they were like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a great fucking movie. They can't stop that. But we have to put this trash in it. And so we're going to stick all of it in the third act and make it just as junky as you could possibly imagine so that everybody sees what it is they're doing, right? But the fire scene is the most broken scene I found in the movie. There might be a more broken scene. I'm unaware of it. I didn't notice. one of the guys finds out that something sideways is definitely taking place. He needs a distraction so he can remove something from somewhere without anyone notice or get into a room without somebody seeing. You see him pick up some candles and then the scene changes, right?
Yes.
Now, he never says he needs a distraction. He doesn't go as far as saying it out loud. But then it cuts to the scene in the room, and I think it's the money counting room. It's a garage or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're standing around, they're arguing back and forth. I think there's 4 people in this room, and the room is absolutely covered in candles like a medieval cathedral. And a fire comes out of the vent and attacks the boxes nearby like a living animal. Like, it didn't just like catch the wall on fire. There are like billowing clouds of smoke coming out of this fucking vent. And I'm thinking, oh, that's crazy. How did you not notice it? I had to go back and look 3 times to be like, how did nobody notice it? But if you look at the scene, everyone in the scene has their back specifically to that spot on the wall. Matt Damon is standing with his right shoulder like facing the other guy. The other guy is staring straight down at the table the whole time. And
it takes them a very implausibly long period of time to determine that the room they're in is on fire.
But what they use that time for is absolutely gorgeous, bro. It's another full exposition of everything that's happened in the fucking movie. And the reason they missed it is because they were busy trying to explain to the audience what the fuck is going on. And that's hilarious, but so broken.
And I hate to shift topics on you, but could I take just a minute or two to answer this question that because if I don't do it, I'm going to forget about it. And Mr. Joker wanted to know more about the Thule B-52 crash, and I would just like to read briefly.
It's a really cool story. Go ahead.
Yeah. 21 January 1968, an aircraft incident, sometimes known as the Thule affair, involving a U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber occurred near Thule Air Base in Greenland. The aircraft was carrying 4 B-28 thermonuclear bombs on a Cold War Chrome Dome alert mission over Baffin Bay when a cabin fire forced the crew to abandon the aircraft before they could carry out an emergency landing at Thule Air Base. 6 crew members ejected safely, but one who did not have an ejection seat was killed while trying to bail out. The bomber crashed onto sea ice in North Star Bay, Greenland, causing the conventional explosives aboard to detonate and the nuclear payload to rupture and disperse, resulting in radioactive contamination of the area. The United States and Denmark launched an intensive cleanup and recovery operation, but the secondary stage of one of the nuclear weapons could not be accounted for after the operation was completed. U.S. Strategic Air Command Chrome Dome operations were discontinued immediately after the accident, which highlighted the safety and political risks of the missions. Safety procedures were reviewed and more stable explosives were developed for use in nuclear weapons. In 1995, a political scandal arose in Denmark after a report revealed the government had given tacit permission for nuclear weapons to be located in Greenland in contravention of Denmark's 1957 nuclear-free zone policy. Workers involved in the cleanup program campaigned for compensation after radiation-related illnesses they experienced in the years after the accident. And that's it.
Nice.
And I trust that adequately answers the question.
Should.
But yeah, that is a hell of a story, especially the cleanup stage of it. That was a hell of an operation and a hell of a place to have to do it in.
So I've got the trailer here. Did we get copyrighted on the last trailer we looked at?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And it was like Superman, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll give it a shot. This is the Netflix trailer for The Rip, and it does kind of demonstrate some of the things that we're talking about and how transitional things are in the third act. It goes from being a talking cerebral piece into just beating your face against a fucking meat grinder.
Seize the cash, count it, and turn it in.
My PD.
On the inside, it's different.
We had a Crime Stopper tip come in on this address.
Shit. There's $1.4 million in this bucket. I bought 14 more of those things.
That's a $20 million rip.
We gotta be smart right now. We gotta move this money, man.
Stay off the radios, no call outs.
What would you do with this? Just this. Everything.
That chick is the one that I say represents the audience in the movie. So just watch her and see what she sees and hears, and that's the stuff you're supposed to pay attention to.
I was thinking more of the chick that they had in custody, but yeah, there's that that works too.
The only thing is she does know a little bit about where the money comes from, and so she has more information than the audience does. This chick just seems to be a random chick that happened to be with these guys that day.
You heard about the inside heist teams.
Yeah, cops playing robbers.
Need any help tonight, Lieutenant?
Nope. We didn't get a heads up about this.
The longer we stay here, the dicier this shit gets.
Don't trust anyone.
All I know is what we do right now and who we talk to matters. You see that? P-I-G-S. Is there anything that you've heard about him?
There's snitches in every division.
Watch your back.
Cover! Bitch! I'm breaking loose! I got the roof! You want to steal this rip? Just say it out loud.
You a snitch, Mike?
This is my crime scene. Let me run it.
They just gonna take the money?
Were you and Captain Velez close?
Tell me what's going on.
First off, back the fuck up.
You're not going anywhere without me. You're not giving orders. I don't trust you right now, and that's a problem.
You just take whatever money you want and walk away. Before this goes really bad for all of us.
All right, let's finish what it is.
Well, I had forgotten until I saw the screen on the trailer that this was inspired by true events. But in light of that, I have pulled up a Forbes article that deals with the true events that the film was inspired by. If you would like me to read from that after we're done doing what we're doing now.
All right, cool. In your opinion, we're gonna completely hijack the Siskel and Ebert method, and we are going to change it and make it our own, thereby distinctly non-copyrightable. I give it 2 birds way up, right? It's worth the watch. It's silly, and it kind of does stupid stuff to the audience, but at the same time, it's a good film. Take your wife, take your girlfriend, maybe not take your kids. Way up. Okay.
Yes, and I don't want to suggest in my complaints about how things went in the third act once the bullets started flying. I don't want those complaints to be taken as saying you shouldn't watch the movie, because I think you should watch the movie. I think the movie is very much worth watching, especially in light of the fact that it is very much a script-driven picture that doesn't rely on CGI bullshit and explosions and big loud nonsense. And I think pictures like that have to be supported, especially in the cinematic times that we're currently living in.
So do you think this could have stood for a theater release?
I was wondering about that, and I
think so. I think
can't see why not.
Up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you don't have bankable stars in it. I mean, it's an Affleck Damon picture. Those guys have been pretty dependable box office guys for since freaking Dogma, for God's sake.
Fucking headcanon time, right? So, Goodwill Hunting eventually leaves his job as a construction worker, doesn't go to college, or rather flunks out of college because of drug use or what the hell ever, and ends up becoming a cop in Miami. Hence, we end up with this convoluted fucking bullshit that's almost impossible to parse out without help from freaking Netflix to explain it to us. How you like
I'm glad you brought that up, because I can totally see them both being the same character. That's fantastic.
So in between that and this, we end up with the dogma situation where they're both unemployed and basically roustabout sitting around smoking weed and bitching at each other about bad movies. Totally fits. Perfect headcanon. Let's go with that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's 2 thumbs up to that headcanon creation, my friend.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. All right.
Should we find out about the true story now?
Yeah. All right. Do the thing.
This is Monica Mercury writing in Forbes, and she begins, Netflix's new crime thriller The Rip is now streaming, with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck starring as 2 Miami cops who stumbled upon a massive stash of cash at a cartel house. The film is inspired by an actual incident involving the Miami-Dade Police Department, but how much of it is true? In The Rip, Lieutenant Dane Dumars and Detective Sergeant J.D. Byrne, members of the Tactical Narcotics Team, come across $20 million in cartel money in a derelict stash house. Under Miami law, they are required to count it before leaving the premises. The cops and their team have only a limited amount of time to count the money before the dangerous men who stashed it there return to claim it. As they count the cash, trust within the squad begins to fracture. They have to count the money, not knowing necessarily who to trust, including one another. Writer-director Joe Carnahan told Netflix's, I don't know how to say that. The cast includes, we know who's in the cast. Let me get to the part that we want here. The Rip is based on the true story of Chris Cassiano, a real Miami cop who discovered a massive sum of money stashed in a house while serving as the head of Miami-Dade Police Department's Tactical Narcotics Team. The cash was hidden in containers inside the walls that they sledgehammered out. Carnahan explained to Gold Derby, adding that just like in the film, there was also a dog outside barking and going nuts. I thought that was really wild. I had never experienced a cop story like that. Cassiano was a close friend of Carnahan, and his experience inspired the director to create the movie. The Rip came out of a deeply personal experience that my friend went through, both as a father and as head of tactical narcotics for the Miami-Dade Police Department, Carnahan explained to Netflix. Carnahan added that he was also inspired by classic 1970s cop thrillers that really valued the character and interpersonal relationships and became touchstones of that era. Films like Serpico and Prince of the City, and more recently, Michael Mann's Heath. Who was Jake William Cassiano? In The Rip, Damon's character, who is loosely based on Cassiano, is grieving the loss of his 10-year-old son to cancer. The storyline is inspired by Cassiano's real-life son, Jake William Cassiano, who died of leukemia in 2021. The film is dedicated to Jake. Carnahan opened up to Decider about how he approached telling such a deeply personal story. Quote, Cassiano lost his son, unfortunately, very tragically to cancer at age 11. The movie was me trying to conceive something that would help my friend deal with grief, the crushing, agonizing sadness that would bring. It's a parent's worst nightmare. Nobody wants to outlive their child. I can't think of a worse fate. This was a clumsy way of trying to give him something. Through art, we could build a memorial, a monument to Jake and his time here, his short 11-year life. Carnahan told Gold Derby that when he showed Cassiano the film before its release, they both became emotional, calling the experience cathartic and amazing. Quote, it was really important to me that Jake be the first name you see because you understood that there was a beating heart at the center. What is fictionalized in The Rip? Well, the basic concept of The Rip, officers finding millions in cartel money and being required to count it, is true. Most of what unfolds in the film, including the corruption, dirty cops, and the confrontation over the money, is not. Although Carnahan confirmed that the dirty cop storyline was made up, he noted that all that stuff about counting the money on the seizure on scene is absolutely true. In the real situation, he revealed, it took 42 hours to count the cash. You're required to count it twice, actually, by hand, he said. The real Rip, Sasha's character, in real life, that was an older man. At some point, they sat this guy down to start counting. They had to get the guy that owned the place also counting. If you're off by $1, Internal Affairs gets involved. This is a very real thing. Carnahan added that his responsibility was to take elements of it that I thought were cinematic and parse through it. Since they couldn't make a 42-hour film, certain things were expedited, certain things were snipped, and so on. By the end of The Rip, the final tally comes out to $20,650,480, the same amount that Chris Cassiano discovered in real life. They're watching this counter. It hits a number, the final tally. Chris removes a business card and shows it to the DEA guy. It's the same number, which I thought was lovely. Carnahan added, there's not enough stories like that where everybody does the right thing. The Rip is now streaming on Netflix. Watch the official trailer below. That is the end of the article.
Excellent. I kind of wish it was longer because
I would like to. I kind of would like to know more about the actual story.
Oh no, that's not it. It's because now we have to talk about one battle after another.
Oh God.
And I think that this one would be doing a little different.
I get your point now.
Right. I'm gonna do the trailer first because it'll make zero sense without it.
And if there's anybody in the chat who's actually seen that piece of shit, that please tell us, because we need all the help we can get with this one.
Well, no, that's not how I want it. I want it right. All right. Y'all ready, folks? You got your wine, pet your cat, get your dog on your feet, light your fire, get your popcorn, and get ready for an absolute, fucking brain dead.
Make sure you are all beveraged up.
Definitely take a shot.
What I'm doing here is I'm creating a closed circuit. Very important to keep your cap shunted like this so you don't accidentally detonate your charge.
Don't stop. I want you to create a show. This is an announcement on revolution. The message is clear.
I'll be seeing you very soon.
Not if I see you first.
We're bringing justice to the vigilante group known as the French 75. We are here to award Stephen Lockjaw with the Medal of Honor.
You have to understand, Will.
Me and Mama used to run around and do some real bad shit. They got hurt. Now they're coming after us. I'm sorry.
I didn't ask for this. That's just how the cards were rolled out for me.
It's not cards. You don't roll cards. It's dice.
Dad, what is wrong with you?
You're right.
Let's go. I got a tunnel.
Whoa, what's going on?
I need a weapon, man. All you got is goddamn nunchucks here. You know where I can get a gun?
I wanted to protect you from all your mom's stuff, from all my stuff, even though I know that's impossible.
This is the end of the line.
Not for you.
I'ma keep on running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Whoa, who's this?
Oh, they're just my friends.
Now, is that a he or a she or a they?
It's not that hard. They, them.
Okay, I just want to be polite.
Keep running, jumping the aqueducts, fire hydrants and hazardous smoke alarms on the back of foot. But mama, don't cry for me, rap for me, trap for me, live for me, breathe for me, sing for me.
Yo, say it. Say it, baby.
Love you, Bob.
Love you too.
You know what freedom is? No fear. Just like Tom Cruise.
All right. Now, can you repeat what you sent to me in your first text about it being Gemini? Give me a script about. Go ahead.
Yes. Give me 2.5 hours of woke Oscar bait. Let me.
Yeah, no, it was fucking great, man. Like I've been trying to figure out how to say it. Let me go back to the
text because I'm not remembering the whole thing. Here, I'll have it in just a second.
The first 20 minutes of this movie is white repressed angst for the attraction of big booty black women. And I have to admit, they choose some very lovely black women in this film. There is not an ugly person to be seen anywhere in this film. Everybody is trim, fit, well put together. The sloppiest guy in here is actually Leonardo DiCaprio.
All right, here it is. I got it. ChatGPT Write me 2.5 hours of dumb woke Oscar bait. Include ham-handed references to every issue that was fashionable among affluent leftists in the year 2025. Remember that all white men secretly wish to be sexually dominated by strong, powerful women of color.
Yes, yes. There is literally a scene in here where the protagonist takes first of all, who's the protagonist?
It's got to be Leo, doesn't it?
Okay, sure. I'll allow. Leo apparently is the storyteller in this situation. So the strong black woman, what don't need no man, is hooked up with Leo because of his technical skills utilizing boom boom devices. Okay, and that's what gets her off is the revolutionary flair blowing shit up, and so she encounters Lockjaw, the antagonist, I suppose, which is a really weird way to put this.
70-year-old Sean Penn playing an army captain, apparently.
She comes in, holds him at gunpoint, and tells him to get up. But she's not talking about on his feet. She means his member. Yep. Right? And it works. Like everything happens just like that. So it's really weird, bro. It's so strange. It's such a strange thing. But what really bothers me about it is it depicts Willa as an unwilling hero for the future. So if there's a sequel that comes along, she's going to be the strong, empowered feminist of color, you know? And
is that actress the same chick that was in the Han Solo movie and the Falcon and Winter Soldier, or is it a different chick? I feel like it was the same chick. I have
no idea. I know that one of the characters in here is named Jungle Pussy, and trying to type in and search the different names these people use will get you put on multiple fucking lists. Don't do that. Don't do this thing is okay.
Or at least don't do it until after you have turned safe search on.
Right. Go incognito and get you a VPN. And I don't think that's gonna help because the Five Eyes will find you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be doing any searches for Jungle Pussy.
Right? I mean, it's absolutely hilarious. But what I want to point out is I find some weird similarities between this movie and the Barbie film.
Me too.
If you look at this as a very surface depiction of, say, militant group A against anti-militant action B equals, woke Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
The issue I have with it
surface level meaning terrorism is often is awesome. Border enforcement is evil. The country is secretly run by a cabal of evil, racist, white supremacist, middle-aged men. All that stuff. All that surface level.
Right. Exactly. Surface level. You just look at the surface of it. It looks like.
Is it really deep?
You're glitching out a little bit, bro. Oh, that's unfortunate. So the problem comes when you actually dig a little bit deeper into the cause and effect of why things take place. Okay. So you've got Homeboy, who is a revolutionary so he can get laid, apparently. That seems to be his primary motivation, is sexual activity with a beautiful woman. I got no smoke for the man. I'm just saying I might not blow some shit up for it. At best be some bomb-ass pussy is all I got to say. So he commits a dozen felonies. In the process of all of this, she gets pregnant. And you don't know whose kid it is, because during that time period she had sex with 2 white men and the kid's half white, so it fits right in with the narrative until Lockjaw shows up. And what was it you said about the non-specific military attire?
Yes, it's difficult not to notice that. Well, I think the way I framed it was, if you're making a movie where you are doing constant slanderous depictions of either the U.S. military or U.S. border and immigration enforcement authorities, and you want to insulate yourself from being sued for libel by those organizations and agencies due to the slanderous depiction that you were engaged in? Well, there's a series of steps that you really have to take that you would be well advised to take. The first is to never say the name of any agency or service branch out loud. Just sort of pretend that the military and DHS and ICE and CBP and what have you are all kind of the same sort of nebulous thing, and they are all populated by the same evil white racist males who secretly have sexual fetishes for strong, powerful women of color. And also, don't use any rank insignia, any sort of distinguishing marks. Don't even use real world camouflage patterns. Use camouflage patterns that are either outdated or fictional, because then none of those agencies can look at that picture and sue you for the way that you have slanderously depicted them, because there's no way to pin down which agency or service branch is being thus slanderously depicted. And that was my theory.
Absolutely. I love that you picked up on it, because I noticed it in like on the surface of my brain. There was a point I actually looked at, I was like, what branch is this? Is this military or domestic?
Yeah.
Are these police or ICE? I mean, what are they? And I never did get a straight answer. She was like, wait, the movie will tell you. And I was like, I'm not so sure, and obviously it never does clarify any of that. It could have been Blackwater for all we know.
Yeah. And when we first begin the picture, I feel like they very much want us to think that these are military men being depicted, but that's incongruous and doesn't make sense, because the place where that sequence is set, and it even says so on screen, is the Otay Mesa Immigrant Detention Center, which just south of here. Another interesting thing about this movie is that it was all shot in the area in which I live, so watching it's like a San Diego County travel log to all intents and purposes, but nothing about that is correct. And as we know, I actually just found out when we were backstage before the show started, we know this picture is based on a novel that was written in 1990. And in the movie, we have the second part of it takes place in the present day, and they tell us that there has been a 16-year passage of time, because that's, of course, the age that the daughter is now. So if present day, 2025, 26, 16 years in the past, that's 2010, 2011, when these first sequences that are being depicted supposedly take place. But you guys kind of screwed the pooch on that when you woke filmmakers, because that's Barack Obama's America that you were depicting being so evil. So whoopsie.
Yeah, and really, and I've said this a dozen times since I watched the film, if this had been filmed in the 1960s or had been set in the 1960s with the Weather Underground and stuff like that, this might have been quite a decent expose on the types of motivations that lead to revolutionary type activity. Instead, they took a conglomeration of the mid-60s type of unrest, the mid-80s immigration blitz, and the mid-2000s wokerati, and mixed that together and turned it into a white supremacist nation that is literally wandering around catching and throwing out brown people. That is exactly what they're depicting. And I think it's a little too on the nose. I think it's so on the freaking nose for modern politics today as to literally be thumbing the nose to the producers and all the people that be. Everybody who forced this movie to be made the way it was made. There is a scene in this movie where a pregnant woman is firing an LMG, and it's gorgeous. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I had to go have sex with my wife immediately after that. All the other sexual stuff, nothing. Dead as a doornail, dead fish, right? Suddenly there's this hot pregnant chick just spraying a freaking train car or some shit. And I'm like, honey, we've got business to tend to.
Not just pregnant, like about to burst pregnant.
Yeah, and her reasoning for leaving her child with the white guy is because the revolution isn't going to have itself.
Yes, exactly. And of course the the kid actually winds up being secretly the child of the Sean Penn character, Mr. Lockjaw, right. Captain Lockjaw, Colonel Lockjaw, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, and, Admiral Lockjaw by the end.
Yeah. Because that was the That was the price that she had to pay when she was arrested for murder after the very Symbionese Liberation Army style bank robbery that they did. There's a lot of very SLA, very Black Panther type imagery in this thing. Like you said, there's a lot of sort of incongruous different time periods that are attempting to be depicted here. A lot of strangely anachronistic dialogue too. At
Yes.
one point, one of those guys calls people reefer addicts. I mean, are we
Yes.
in 1937? Who the hell says reefer addicts? But anyway, yeah, that was the price that she had to. I don't want to
Take the
use
hot
the
beef
nomenclature that they
injection.
used in the film, but she had to perform certain services for Captain Lockjaw, as he was then, in exchange for getting a spot in the witness protection program, and that wound up being the procreative act that created little Willa, who thinks she is Leo DiCaprio's kid, and obviously Leo thinks that too. And that's one of the big twists that gets unveiled as we go along in the proceedings.
But there's something else here. There is the metaphorical 10,000 foot view of this film, in which this woman named after 3 cities in California, I can't remember her name, but it's like
Perfidia Beverly Hills.
Yeah, Perfidia Beverly Hills. She literally gives birth to the revolution by abandoning her child and breaking up the family so that she can go off and be antagonistic through the rest of the film. After she gets arrested, she basically just vanishes out of the film entirely.
Yeah,
and
she bails off to TJ.
Right. Yeah, she's off Tijuana or some fucking weird. Everybody says she's dead, but I don't think it ever actually depicts her in any situation that would have ended with her dying. She just ran away, right?
Well, no, she goes and gets the daughter out of the high school dance. They come face to face with each other.
That was her. Me and my wife argued. Hold on. Me and my wife argued for 45 minutes about who it was that was actually taking her out of the dance. I was saying it's her mother, and she was saying, no, it's the other chick, Jungle Pussy. And I was like,
it absolutely was her mother. There's no doubt about that.
That shit bent my brain when it wasn't her mother. When she convinced me it wasn't the chick's mama, I couldn't understand why this scene was even taking place. It didn't make any sense. Who else would walk into the jaws of death for that?
Yep.
I've got a surprise for you over here.
Okay.
So I went and found Critical Drinker's take on this, and can you believe it's only 7 minutes long?
Let's have it.
All right. I give you.
I'll be talking Scottish for the rest of the episode now.
Great. One battle
It'll be
after the Critical Drinker.
So, when it comes to contentious and politically divisive movies, one battle after another might just have taken the top spot for the entire year. Depending on who you talk to, it's either the greatest cinematic triumph of the past 2 decades, on par with Sicario, Gangs of New York, and No Country for Old Men, or a pretentious, morally bankrupt Hollywood circle jerk that glorifies domestic terrorism and is more interested in taking shots at the current administration than crafting a compelling story.
Yes, on both. I think we can say yes.
I don't know that I've ever seen a major motion picture that was more brazenly, gleefully pro-terrorism than this one.
Yeah, you might have something there. I'll have to think on that one.
And in the middle of this cultural maelstrom is little old me, who's left with the job of setting aside what this movie represents and focusing instead on what it actually is. And I'm sorry to say that what it is a frustrating mixture of superb acting and directing talent desperately trying to elevate a script that doesn't really deserve either. A movie that's too long, too sluggish, too self-important, and too wrapped up in its own messaging to keep me invested. The kind of film where I struggle to care about any of the characters because there's such a bunch of useless, irritating fuck-ups that I began to wonder who the good guys were even supposed to be.
Exactly. You go through this whole film with the depiction of this revolutionary retard over here that's like literally blowing shit up are the heroes.
Yes. There is not and like you keep saying, there is not one single morally praiseworthy, upstanding character in this entire film. So who the hell are you supposed to root for, actually?
There is one, I think. Do you remember the Native American fellow who delivers her, and then he walks away for a minute and he just kind of thinks about what he's doing? He grabs a shotgun and goes and cleans the slate. That might be the only possibly good guy in the entire film, and all you ever see him do is drive and make truly moral decisions,
and then get killed. And yeah, you probably have a point there.
And essentially, he sacrifices himself for Willa. That's the only reason she gets away from the pop stand over there.
Yeah.
So
those are the only pangs of conscience that we witness in these entire proceedings.
Dude, that guy's an absolute freaking unit. I want him to get a freaking Oscar if he can, because I mean, he was just following orders until he just couldn't do it no more. You want me to do what to a little girl? Oh, hell no.
Anyway, unlike this movie, which drags on for nearly 3 excruciating hours, I'm going to try and get this review over with quickly. So on to the plot summary. The movie begins with Pat and Perfidia, and yes, that's apparently her real name.
Right.
Who are members of a far-left revolutionary terrorist group that are definitely not Antifa, and also lovers. I mean, fuck me, I guess she must have a stunning personality or something.
I don't know, man. Do you say what you want to say? I think she's gorgeous.
I guess you're welcome to think that. I'm not seeing it, though.
I'm all right. To each his own. I'm just saying.
But whatever. Anyway, not Antifa are busy making the world a better place.
Let me rephrase that. She's gorgeous when she smiles. If she's just sitting there giving you fucking ugly face, yeah, she's ugly like all bitches be ugly.
I mean, maybe below the neck I could get into it. I don't know.
I could definitely get into it below the neck. Do you see that girl in them jeans? Jesus Christ, dude. What's wrong with you?
Property that will have to be repaired using taxpayer dollars and terrorizing innocent civilians whose only crime was being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Hands.
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies?
What lovely people. Things are going just swell until Perfidia runs afoul of Sean Penn, Things are going just swell until Perfidia...
What are you talking about,
I bet Sean
dude?
Penn actually touched himself when he first saw that script.
Oh, boy. I bet there was a lot of
the chance to play the exact kind of person that he hates more than any other kind of person in the whole wide world. Oh, God, he must have loved that.
All right. Oh, wow.
Runs afoul of Sean Penn, a military officer with a bit of a kink for strong black women, who captures her in the middle of a mission, forcing her to shag her way out of the problem.
Oh, no. What happened?
Unfortunately, this creates a whole new...
All right. So
there's your glory shot.
Here's the thing. When I was watching the trailers, I thought that was Benicio del Toro. I never actually looked at it. I just assumed it was him with a beer gut, right?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I got a question to lay on you. Tell me that Benicio del Toro's character in this picture isn't the exact same character he played in The Last Jedi.
No, you're right. It's the same character he's played in a few movies, to be honest. He doesn't have any of the dark, brooding, swarthy Hispanic gentleman flair. What he's got is the happy-go-lucky, slightly drunk Hispanic.
Yeah, he's cool, fun, drunk guy who emerges out of the woodwork to extricate you from the situation that you're in, and then he disappears.
Yeah, he's the wolf. If I had to name him as a position, he's the wolf.
That's a good call. Yep.
Right. He shows up, does some shit. Everybody gets away scot-free, and then he gets picked up for like a misdemeanor.
Uh-huh.
Walks away out of here clean as a whistle.
Problem when she falls pregnant and she's not entirely sure who the father is. I mean, based on how she acts in this film, it could probably be half of Southern California.
I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
Anyway, skip forward a year and Perfidia decides to run out on Pat and her baby to go back to playing Che Guevara, mostly because she's a selfish arsehole, then gets captured and immediately flips on the rest of Not Antifa to save her.
Exactly. Even the supposed good guy in this supposed film immediately turns on absolutely everybody. She turns state's evidence and dips off to go fuck off somewhere else.
And all of these white men are just orbiting this strong, powerful woman of color, just completely captivated by her sexual energy. They just can't get enough of it.
I want to show them. They can't see it. You see, there's a single black, well, two black men, possibly. This guy's probably black. Maybe that guy back there could be, and everyone else in this scene is white. There's this one chick who seems to be like maybe the DA or some shit.
Yeah, maybe.
With the DA's office walking along here, and everybody's got these shit-eating grins. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, posing for selfies and shit.
Now, you might find that type of a setup somewhere in like Oklahoma or maybe Missouri, Alabama, sure, but to have that type of race built into what is supposed to be a police department in a municipal place like San Francisco, San Diego, LA, bullshit.
It's the kind of thing that only exists in the fever dreams of affluent white liberals in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Ronars.
We're gonna have to go over that one day. You know that, right?
Yes.
Arse.
Nick Cage, baby.
What a lovely person. With Sean Penn now hunting down and executing his revolutionary comrades, Pat's forced to go into hiding with his daughter and take on the new name of Bob. Skip forward 16 years and Bob's now a paranoid, drug-addicted loser living with his girl-boss-in-waiting daughter, Willa. Not Willow, mind you, Willa.
And here's another thing that I noticed. They foreshadow her not being his kid because she never calls him dad. She always calls him Bob.
Always calls him Bob. Yeah, it's almost as on the nose as the way in the other movie they really want you to think the Chinese cop is the only good cop and the other four of them are all crooked dickheads.
Right.
Sure, whatever, fuck it. Meanwhile, Sean Penn is a rising star in the US military, and when he's approached to join
he says US military.
Well, he's Scottish. What the fuck does he know? We look at that and we know
that's the impression that we wanted to create, but there is absolutely no version of reality in which the military would be guarding immigration detainees.
Well,
in the real world, it just does not happen.
Not yet.
Yes, we can hope.
What they should have done is said it in the near future, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
That probably would have been the safer bet.
Right.
Well, how can I put this? Guys who believe that white people are superior, that creates a bit of a problem for him because if they find out that he fathered a child with Mother of the Year 17 years earlier, it's not going to end well for him. So basically the movie becomes a kind of cat and mouse game where Bob and Willa are forced to go on the run while Sean Penn hunts them down with all the force of the US government at his disposal. But will father and daughter make it out the other side? Will Sean Penn finally get his comeuppance? And more importantly, will he ever get a decent fucking haircut? Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely things to praise about this movie, but unfortunately, most of it rests on the superficial aspects of the film. From a directing and cinematography point of view, it's definitely a well put together film.
It's gorgeous. Every scene in it is absolutely immaculate. It's amazing this much money was spent on something so bullshit.
Well, I mean, yeah, in technical terms, I mean, outside of the obnoxiously yellow oversaturated color palette, it's flawless in technical terms.
I agreed. Now there's a couple of scenes like when he's running across the rooftops with the parkour kids and they jump the gap and he can't make the gap, so he jumps for the tree. That's bullshit. Did you see that gap? That was 32-foot alleyway, bro. They long jumped a 32-foot. No. When you see them jump, they just hop.
And was it on purpose that all of those kids did like a Spider-Man pose as they were jumping down, or was that just me?
I think that was on purpose. I think it was part of the mystique of them moving through the city as if they were some vigilante group perpetrating justice on an unknowing world, right?
Because obviously we have to equate domestic terrorists with our favorite superheroes because they're basically the same.
They're basically the same thing.
Paul Thomas Anderson isn't exactly a prolific director, but what he does make is generally really good, from quirky, offbeat classics like Boogie Nights and Magnolia to epic dramas like There Will Be Blood, and One Battle After Another is no exception. The action sequences are well choreographed, there's plenty of strong visuals and a definite creative flair during the tense dramatic moments. Performances are strong across the board, which is pretty much what you'd expect when you've got Benicio del Toro, Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn in your movie. DiCaprio delivers his usual intense, laser-focused performance like he's still chasing that Oscar win with every single movie he does. He's got excellent chemistry with his daughter Willa, and although their scenes are kind of few and far between, they're probably the most enjoyable aspect of the movie for me. Sean Penn is the standout though as Colonel Lockjaw.
Oh, come on!
Where the fuck did they get these names from? Can't wait to hear more from his superiors General Scurvy and Admiral Diphtheria. The dude looks like he's on the verge of either exploding.
Oh, when I promote myself, I'm changing my name to General Scurvy.
Okay, well, I heard a line the other day that made me think about this movie. Homeboy told me he'd given more chicks lockjaw than tetanus, and I was like, "Damn, dude!" Oh my god!
Absolute rage or bursting into tears in every single scene. And honestly, I can't quite decide if it's a super committed dramatic performance or just goofy overacting. Either way, well, he commands the attention, that's for sure. The problems really lie in the writing, and one of the biggest issues for me is the pacing. At nearly 3 hours...
Hold on, Artie. That means you would have at some point had to have been a private disaster. Just saying.
Long, this movie soon becomes a fucking slog. It's bloated, sluggish, pretentious, and self-indulgent, and after the second hour, I was genuinely starting to get pissed off, wondering if it was ever going to end. The constant commercials for Indian gambling websites didn't exactly help either. Wait, what? The thing is, I'm perfectly fine with longer movies as long as they satisfy two important conditions. There's enough going on to justify the extra runtime, and the characters are likable enough to keep me invested in them. And well, One Battle After Another falls short on both counts. For all the strong performances by a veteran cast, the characters they actually play are such unlikable dickheads that I really didn't care much what happened to any of them. Movies like Four Lions proved that it's possible to show people serving a terrible cause and still make them likable and interesting because there's a strong moral compass underneath it all. I never got that sense with this movie, partly because the ending implies that the cycle of terrorism and retribution is just going to continue on with the next generation, and partly because it's too afraid to engage with the idea that maybe extremism on both sides is a bad thing. Apparently the movie underperformed on its opening weekend, and to be honest, I can kind of see why. Its political messaging and moral framework feel like they've been overtaken by real-life events in recent months, and if I had to take a guess, I'd say that audiences, especially American audiences, are suffering from a kind of culture war fatigue at this point. They're getting tired of all this shit, and the last thing they need is the elites of Hollywood descending from their ivory towers to tell them how they ought to be feeling about the whole thing. Ultimately, One Battle After Another fell somewhere between the two extremes I mentioned at the beginning of this video, neither a glorious triumph nor a laughable disaster, but something a bit more mediocre. A slightly long, slightly boring, slightly forgettable, and slightly pretentious film that thinks it's way more profound than it actually is, that wasn't really worth the 3-hour runtime, and that I'll probably never bother to watch or even think about again. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Go away now.
All right. So I'm going to end this all on when they were escaping from the bank robbery. They drive like a bat out of hell through crowded, busy city streets, and not a single cop notices the 3 different cars leaving from the scene of the crime, like driving like crazy people, and no one calls that shit in. What a stroke of luck. Oh my. I am utterly like plot armor. These people, I would watch this movie as an exhibition on how not to spend money.
Or as the object of a drinking game.
We got to do one. We totally got to do one. And me and you got to get together and sit through this goddamn travesty. Maybe not. I don't know if I could stand that. I might drink just.
And I appreciate the fact that Drinker hit upon a lot of the same things that we've been discussing today.
And I did not watch that before we came on tonight.
Yeah, me either. It's the first time I've seen it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us tonight on the Blast Radius. We sure do like spending these 3 hours with you every Sunday evening, especially if you're not watching that football game that's on right now, because why would you be? The NFL hates you, and we don't. The NFL hates America, and none of us here hate America. Just like you're not going to watch the Super Bowl. You're going to be watching this program instead on Super Bowl Sunday, aren't you? You don't need to answer because I know you are. I want you to have a great tomorrow and an edifying Tuesday and a wonderful day after that, and really an incredibly fulfilling entire rest of your week. And we will see you back here next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Thanks again for being with us. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
This one's for you, buddy. Nice.